Okay, welcome back to the channel. I'm Tamarinder Richard Lacey. I've been in Costa Rica for the last 26 years or so. Today's topic is a COVID update. I'm writing to you in early November, but we seem to have a pretty clear picture now as to how the next few months is going to pan out. So I'm just going to talk through a few of the updates from my last video. I would say yes, come to Costa Rica. They seem to have things under control as of now. Most people have been vaccinated. They've got good common sense controls in place. You have to wear a mask in supermarkets and when you walk into restaurants, but then as soon as you sit down you can take it off. Bars, you're supposed to as you go in, but as the evening goes on they seem to relax the rules a bit. So it's a manageable situation right now. But there's some very important changes coming in on 8th of January that I want to tell you about. So firstly, before you fly, check with your embassy website to see what the rules are for where you're coming from. The usual countries we get visitors from, US, Canada, Spain, England. It's easy to get here and it's fairly easy to get back home. I flew in from Europe a month or so ago and I didn't need a COVID test. I had to fill in a quick form which took me 10 minutes online and that was pretty much it. And then when I got here, the sort of normal checks you go through with immigration, it was a fairly straightforward process. A barrier that was around a couple of months ago that's now been taken away was the requirement to have a Costa Rican insurance. Now, if you're fully vaccinated, and that means you've had your 2 jabs 14 days before you travel, then you don't need to get the special insurance. So, you need to take whatever insurance you would normally take out, but you don't need to get the special COVID insurance that was only through a few suppliers. It's only if you're not vaccinated that you need to do that. Now, if you're not vaccinated and you're traveling, if you look at the bottom, if you scroll down to the bottom, there's a whole load of resources to click on so you can see which insurance companies provide the kind of insurance that you're going to have to take out. So the form you need to fill out is called the Costa Rican Travel Passport. And again, there's a link below to it. I'd actually forgotten to do it. I did it at the airport when I was trying to get on the plane and they just sent me to the back of the line. And while I was there, I was able to fill it in. So it's something that's fairly quick to do. But that from 8th of January, which again, I'm going to tell you about, is a really key document because that's going to produce a QR code that's firstly going to get you into the country and then it's going to allow you to do everything. Airports are almost 100% back to normal now. When I was traveling in COVID times, it felt like there'd been a nuclear holocaust and it was just dark as you walk through these major international hubs. But now everything seems back to normal. You have to, of course, wear your mask pretty much from when you get into your airport at home through to when you leave the Costa Rican airport, you're going to need to be wearing a mask. Now, when I came over from Spain, and it was sort of 12 hours of a mask. And the cheap blue ones you get, I got really sore behind my ears because it's just got that stringy bit. So you can buy these little clips where you sort of, instead of it going around your ears, it's hooked around the back of your head. It was really good. Or the other thing I did, I've got noise cancelling earphones. I actually put the mask hooks over the top of the earphones and that kind of alleviated that because it's a long time to be traveling with a mask. Even if you're coming from somewhere in the US or Canada, it's still going to be a good day's travel. When I came in, I wasn't allowed to check in online because you need to go up to the counter and show them that you've got your QR code, and if you need the insurance then you show them the insurance and that. So that's an extra step to take in mind when you're thinking about when you need to arrive at your home airport coming over here. You might need to allow a little bit of extra time because you might have to queue up before you go through passport control. Whereas before you just go through passport control and to the gate, now you've got that extra step. So you might want to allow a little bit extra time when you're coming over. Once you get to Costa Rica at the airport, because of these extra checks, the lines do seem longer. I mean, I've seen people, it just depends on your luck as to how many other big planes are arriving at the same time as you are. The last 2 or 3 times I've come through, there have been massive long lines. Now I sort of shoot through because I've got my permanent residency, so they treat me like a local. So I always get that feeling of royalty as I sort of come through and go to my special line. But most people coming in, if you just got a normal tourist visa, you need to plan on being like an hour or so between when your plane lands and when you actually get to your luggage. So I'd say when you get off, just go to the bathroom and freshen up and make sure you've got a bottle of water, just so that when you're waiting in that line, you're not all angsty. Okay, so now on to the big news. From the 8th of January, they're going to be opening up the country. Like as of now, pretty much any restaurants, bars and everything are closing at 10 p.m. And the plan is from 8th of January, everything's going to be opened up as normal. And rather than the 50% restrictions in restaurants and things, or 75%, they're going to open it up to 100% occupancy. But here's the big but. They're only letting people in who are fully vaccinated. Now, there's not a lot of wiggle room on that. The under 12s, and if you have a medical exemption that's been pre-approved before you come in the country, they're the only exceptions. Other than that, to get into almost any fun thing, restaurants or bars or museums or going on boat trips or pretty much anything you can think of, you're going to need to show your QR code, and it's the same QR code that you did, the process you went through when you came on the plane. Now, obviously you're going to have that on your phone. What I'm recommending to people is that you get a few printed copies, because it's pretty much every time you go into anywhere, you're going to be pulling your phone out and showing it, so you're going to be using up your battery, and it's just a hassle. And it might almost be better just to have a piece of paper in your pocket and show it. The other thing that will allow you to get into any of these establishments is a vaccination card from your home country. I would say stick with a QR code, because I think it's going to cause hassle, because every country's got a slightly different one and they are going to be checking. And so it's just better if you've got the same as everybody else, you just show your code and go in. And if you're pulling out a vaccination card that the gatekeeper hasn't seen before, it's just going to be an extra level of hassle and explanation. So I would say just get your QR code, have a few paper copies, and then I think you'll be good. Another big question I get, can unvaccinated tourists come into Costa Rica? Yes, you can, but you won't be able to do any of the good stuff. So you're allowed to go into places that are deemed necessity places, like supermarkets and pharmacies and that, without showing your QR code. But if you can't get into any of the good stuff, it's going to be a fairly tough time. Next question people always ask me, is there any wiggle room? How can I get in if I don't have all these things? And I'll answer this in two parts. Firstly, I think it's going to be tough. I was in San Jose last week, multi-plaza. Pretty much on the door of every single shop and restaurant, there was somebody checking this stuff. So as I went in, you had to get the gel to wash your hands. Some of them did temperature checks. Everybody required you to wear a mask. And there was no negotiating. If you didn't have that, they were not letting you in. So they are already set up to implement this new system. And they get massive fines. You know, I've seen it even here in Tamarindo. And generally at the beaches, things are a little bit more relaxed than in the cities. But in Tamarindo, I've seen like the biggest bar here, Sharky's, got closed down for a month, like right in the peak of our little mini summer in August. They were closed down a whole month, you know, for really what was fairly minor breaches. So the establishments are nervous. They do have the infrastructure to implement these checks, and they seem to be doing it. So I would say there is very little wiggle room for doing it. And then I'll come on to the second part. The Costa Ricans have got no political angle to the whole COVID thing. They're wearing masks and they're following the rules, firstly because they tend to follow rules. You know, it's a very orderly country. You know, I quite like my country here. And secondly, there's a genuine fear of catching COVID. You know, when I was in San Jose, I was in sort of the financial district and whatever, where people, you know, in shirt and ties, they were out for lunch and whatever. And they were wearing masks walking around the street, even though they didn't need to. So the smarter middle classes here do have a genuine fear of it. And I think that if you're coming here as a guest of their country, you need to follow their rules. I think it's the right thing to do and the respectful thing to do. And the last thing on this subject, Ticos are really genuinely nice, pleasant people that want to avoid confrontation. So I just accept if you decide to come here, and I really hope you do, because Costa Rica's at a beautiful place right now. You know, tourism's getting back, but it's not fully back. The tourism dedicated companies have had a torrid couple of years, so they're doing promotions and doing the best they can and trying to win business. I think you'll get some great deals while you're here, so I'd say absolutely do come. They don't like confrontation. They're lovely, sweet people. So if they've got to come to you and say, hey, can you put your mask on, please show me your QR code, and you're sort of grumbling because your feeling is that you shouldn't have to, it's just going to put them in a bad position. And that's not a fair thing to do, you know. I think, you know, you coming here as a representative of your country, we don't want to look like big, arrogant white men coming over here. So I would say, you know, just accept it with a smile and follow their rules. So when you start to think about returning home, again, first check on the website of your country, the travel website to see what the requirements are. Right now, even if you're vaccinated, for the US and for Canada, you need a negative COVID test done within 3 days of when you fly. Now that doesn't seem logical to me right now, so I'm wondering if that particular rule is going to change, that when you are vaccinated you don't need a negative COVID test. But the rules right now on early November is that you do. Right now most establishments are doing it. So if you're in your hotel, first thing I would do is just ask them in your hotel and book it with them, and they can probably do it in your room, and prices have come down now, so it's a sensible price. So I'd say rather than eat into any time of your vacation, just get them to do it in your hotel room. You need to be a little bit careful. If you're doing a PCR test, it generally takes up to 48 hours to come back. Though my last few have been back in 24 hours, and you need to do it within 72 hours of traveling. So you just need to be a little bit careful of your times. Right now for the US, if you're not vaccinated, then your test needs to be in within 1 day of your travel. So you just need to double check that rule, and if you do the antigen test, then you get the results almost before you leave the clinic, or within a few hours. When you're getting ready to do your test, you have to go to a website called Mi Prueba COVID, which is down below in the links, which is basically my COVID test, and it's a questionnaire, and it's written in a horrible way. If you're trying to do it on your phone, you scroll through it and you think you've done everything, and you click and then say no, you've missed a section, and then you scroll back up and fill in the bit you missed, and then you realize that it's deleted all the bits afterwards. So you have to go through it all again. So I'd recommend, if you can do it on an iPad or on your computer rather than on your phone, it'll make things a lot easier. Firstly, it's not you, it's the form. Because as I always get it wrong. But just have to go through it step by step, and just allow yourself a bit of time to do that before they actually process the test. And just the last thing, if you're arriving in Costa Rica before the 8th of January, they have some interim rules in place. So it is not obligatory for them to check your vaccination between now and the 8th of January 2022. But what they're saying, for example, a restaurant, they're only allowed to open at 100% capacity if they're doing that check. Otherwise, they have to comply with the original rule, which is only 50% capacity. So my sense is that even though it's sort of a voluntary arrangement between now and 8th of January, pretty much they're going to be asking for it. But you might find that, if you're in a place with 5 or 6 different restaurants, you can get into some without being vaccinated and not others. So, between now and 8th of January, it might be livable if you're not fully vaccinated. And that's it for today. I hope this has been useful, and I really hope you do come. I think this high season is going to be a really, really fantastic time to be in Costa Rica, and after 2 years of a very tough time for everybody here. Costa Rica is sort of an informal economy. In other countries, if you've had a salary and you're in the social security system, then when there was no business, there was a safety net. And here there hasn't been. And so the local people have really, really suffered during COVID, because a lot of them are dependent on tourism, and there really hasn't been any here for 18 months or so. So I think that people are going to be welcoming you with open arms. I think there are deals going to be done. People are going to want you to enjoy the country and enjoy the activities, and everybody's going to receive you with a big smile on their face. So I hope you make it down. Thank you.